6, Section 1. Sensory system principles. Sensation, the process by which the nervous system detects the physical events around or inside of us. Sensory cells are specialized to detect physical events going on in and around us. Perception, the experience we have as we process and interpret information from sensory cells. Percept, the final interpretation of a stimulus. Sensation begins with a stimulus. Stimulus, any physical event that affects a sensory receptor cell. Sensory receptor cells, also called receptors. Specialized sensory cells that detect stimuli. Sensory receptor organ, a clump of receptor cells all detecting a particular kind of stimulus. Examples are the nose, ears, tongue, and eyes. Audition, the process of hearing. Olfaction, the process of smelling odors. Sensory modalities, the different types of senses, for example, vision, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. Adequate stimulus, the type of stimulus for which a given sensory receptor organ is particularly adapted to. Labeled lines, the concept that specific nerves are dedicated to relaying specific types of sensory information to the brain. All detection systems have thresholds. Sensory code, the relationship between stimuli and action potentials they produce in sensory cells. Threshold, the weakest possible stimulus that affects a sensory cell's firing. Most sensory cells do not have the lowest possible threshold, and some have higher thresholds, so they only respond to strong stimuli. Psychophysics. Psychophysics, the study of how physical events such as lights and sounds affect our senses. Absolute threshold, the lowest intensity of a stimulus that can be detected in half the time. Above threshold, a person can detect it every time. Below threshold, one cannot detect it every time. Just noticeable differences, or JND. Also called difference threshold, the smallest change in a magnitude of a stimulus that can be detected. Weber's fraction, the smallest change in the magnitude of a stimulus that can be detected, expressed as a proportion of the original stimulus. To detect a difference in weight, it must be 2%, sound must be a 10% difference, and light must be a 1% difference. Detection involves finding a signal in a background of noise. Noise, the firing of a sensory cell without a stimulus or to an irrelevant stimulus. Signal detection theory, a way to measure how well a real stimulus or a signal is detected in the midst of an irrelevant stimuli. Noise, when frightened, one is more likely to hear sounds. Hit, signal detected. False alarm, thought there was a signal but there was not. Miss, signal not detected. Correct rejection, decided there was no signal when there was no signal. Unimportant stimuli, sensory adaptation, the progressive loss of responsiveness in sensory cells exposed to a constant stimulus, such as when your leg is touching a chair while sitting at a table.